Hello there, kia ora. Has anyone told the Prime Minister recently that he's not in the middle of an election campaign? Because he might want to take it on board before releasing videos that feel like election campaign videos. He actually put a video out yesterday where he's wandering around under some trees in an Auckland park like he's Sir Christian Cole hiding from Rhaenyra Targaryen's dragons, where he basically tried to tell us that he's Prime Ministering as hard as it's possible to Prime Minister because that's his job as Prime Minister. He doesn't justify not taking any portfolios because, that's what prime ministers do, but he does talk about his trip coming up to the United States where he's going to be meeting with heads of NATO, and that's fine. That's what we expect from our leaders, for them to represent us on the world stage in different ways. He also pointed out, though, this weird fact about the costs of living crisis.
Security and our prosperity for decades are under threat. And nowhere do we see that more starkly than in Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. Now, closer to home, our neighbourhood is more complex, more chaotic and more challenging to navigate. And conflicts and instability overseas have worsened cost of living pressures here in New Zealand.
Which is weird, not because it's wrong, but because it's right, and he denied it during the election campaign. In fact, he and Nicola Willis were really specific during the election campaign, saying that the rate of inflation that we were dealing with was down to government spending, despite experts really quickly debunking that and pointing out that government spending, while in part slightly inflationary, also leads to an increase in our GDP, but things that actually are inflationary include tax cuts when the country can't afford them. Yeah, especially if they have to borrow for them. So yeah, who cares what the experts have to say when it's convenient for them, I guess. The timing for this video is also really kind of weird. Last week, the Prime Minister was dragged a little bit through the press because it turned out that he and Matt Ducey, the Minister for Mental Health, hadn't read the report on abuse in state care that got released in August last year. Now, the report was only sent to the Prime Minister's office officially last week, which kind of makes sense, but the interim report's been available for quite a while, and Matt Ducey had it sent to him directly in November. And it was discovered that he hadn't read it because he went to an event with the victims and he had to flub his way through and admit that he hadn't actually read this incredibly important report that implies some really bad things about the problems that show up with state care, like the fact that it could be a major driving force for about 90% of people who are currently in gangs, or that boot camps for children don't work. But again, evidence. Now, one of the things that also jumped up when he was being asked about this was just how big the report actually is. And yes, it is a big report because it's highly detailed. So there's lots of words in there. It's about 4 kilograms apparently. And yes, I know that's going to eat into his carry-on luggage because I'm sure the Prime Minister is going to be flying commercial because he promised us that he would do that. And that means he's only got limited carry-on luggage. But he also saves a whole bunch of space by not taking shampoo. So I reckon that he could probably take the report if he really wanted to and give him something to read on the 24-hour flight to the United States. But that's just me. But the important thing here to remember is that I'm not the Prime Minister. He kept reminding us that he is the Prime Minister in the middle of that weird campaign video, in the middle of a period where we don't have an election campaign. In a way, it feels like trying to justify what it is that he does for his job. And we have a pretty good idea as to what Prime Ministers do because we've had quite a few Prime Ministers. At the same time, it also kind of feels like a way of justifying their exorbitant number of social media people. 7 on the social media team, remember? I guess they have to make the money somehow by wandering around in a park in Auckland, hiding from dragons. Oh, hey, while I've still got you here, Blake actually wanted me to pass on a message for you. You might have noticed Blake's been a little bit absent recently. That's because he spent most of the last 2 weeks in hospital. First, with a bout of the flu that's going around at the moment, and then secondly, with a bowel obstruction, which he had surgery for earlier in the week. He's doing fine. He's feeling much, much better, but he and his family wanted me to pass on to let everybody know what's been going on with him. And I want to use it as an opportunity to point out just how stressful a situation like this must be for the people around him. These are people who are supporting him all the time in a highly stressful situation while he's in hospital, dealing with a whole bunch of issues that only a hospital can help with because of the disabilities that he's got. And the government has the audacity to turn around and say that the people who are supporting him aren't entitled to a whole bunch of the things that they were entitled to before to help them manage themselves in such a high-stress period of time. So Blake, I'm glad that you are on the road to recovery, and I'm sure that many other people watching this feel the same way. Lots of love to you and your family. Get well soon, mate, and I'll talk to you when you get out of the hospital.